entryway into the U.S. across the Canadian border. Then there is Aunt Elva, who was a white woman who married into our family in 1902 or 1903. And Aunt Elva, who was harboring a secret that destroyed her first marriage, this is her second marriage, but we won't talk about that. You'll have to read the book in order to find out. Aunt Elva, she had the misfortune of having the U.S. government revoke her citizenship because they believed in this era that a woman's citizenship should reflect that of her husband's. So Aunt Elva, who was born in New Jersey, the daughter of a Civil War veteran, became, a couple of years after marrying her uncle, a Chinese.
Okay, a couple of the men. Talk about the one who the son, who they said, okay, we'd like you to be a bodyguard gangster.
My grandfather Long, who was a bit of a raconteur. He was the neighborhood bookie. His father was head of On Long Tong, so the father was a big shot. And he himself had the sense that there was a greater story at work. And he had this way of roping in much younger women into writing down our stories. And those much younger women are now professors of history at UC Irvine. They've all gone on to do amazing things. If they hadn't conducted that research, I would not have been able to write these sections of the book about him because he was my grandfather that I never met.
Okay, most extraordinary thing you discovered. This is the rapid round.
Yeah, I don't know. Oh, I can't. Well, Aunt Elva.
Yeah, that was
Aunt Elva's secret.
Most heartbreaking.
My Chin grandmother was in her third trimester when she landed on Angel Island, and I found out that the medical examiner of California was an ardent eugenicist, and he believed that eugenics was best practice at the border. And so she had to endure some pretty humiliating physical examinations when she was in her third trimester.
Okay, two last questions. The subtitle of this has to do with exclusion, but we have been living in a time these last couple of years of increased anti-Asian hate, and you were writing this, right in the midst of all of that, and certainly the capital of the anti-Asian hate crimes in this country. And so what do I'm sure that, I know that was on your mind, but I'll ask you the question an interviewer asked me yesterday, which was, is that part of your purpose with this is to educate people and get them to think differently about this? I mean, is there something that you want with this book that can help change that narrative?
So, this story goes way back to a period in time when our young country was asking itself, who is an American and who is not? Who is one of us and who is not? And the decisions that were made back then in the 19th century set us as a country on a path towards seeing all Asians as suspicious and foreign. Now, my family, as you know, goes all the way back to the railroad, and there are many of us, right? And the railroad helped to unite the country, and the country has benefited from that railroad ever since. In fact, my family and I went to Northern California and saw the Summit tunnels, right? And saw the places where the railroad is still in use today. So the great aim of this book is to place Asian Americans into our proper space in the larger American story.
Okay, and one last question, and then we'll let you guys ask some questions. So when On Gold Mountain came out, I had my very first book event here. And the family came. This was where all the family came. And if any of you have been to any of my events here, the family comes out. And these were not big book readers, I would say, but they loved me, and so they came through the line and they bought a book. And then I could see the people in little clusters around, around, looking at the photos. And, people would say, and these were photos I also found at the National Archives. I've never seen a photo of my mother. This is the earliest photo of me there isn't another photo until I went into the war. But how, well, you should talk just a second about the photos in the book and how important they are to the story, but also just how has your family responded to the book?
So the photographs, I always look at photos as a window into a particular time period, and they're important because a lot of this book takes place long before I was ever born. And so for me, looking at photographs of, well, my grandmother when she's a little 8-year-old girl, born and raised on Mott Street, becomes the salutatorian of her school and is the first girl in our family to go to college. You know, seeing that that picture of little grandma just like made me so happy, right? So I love the photographs. I love seeing the photographs even with the reviews, right? Because even if the review is kind of mediocre, there's great grandma looking at me. I'm very happy about being thought about. What was the other question?
Well, what does your family think?
Yeah, so it depends upon who you ask, right? So my mother is beyond thrilled. And this is a good thing because when my last book came out, she didn't talk to me for 6 months. So the fact that she's thrilled is pretty wonderful. Okay. My immediate father's side of the family, I have not heard from them at all. They know that the book was coming out. And there were reviews in the newspapers that they read. But my more extended Chin family have really embraced it. And we've gotten closer as a result. So that is nothing short of thrilling.
It's wonderful. Okay, you have some questions?
You said you were raised by a single mother. Were you the only child, or did you have siblings?
I was the only child of my parents, but I have older siblings, half sisters, because my father was married once before and then married lots of times after. My mother was the second wife. Other questions? We shouldn't have thrown it on you. We should have said, like, think about what you want to ask while we do this lightning round. Yeah, Andrew.
What did your daughter have to say?
Oh, she actually told me that she was really proud of me. So it was very, very sweet because the book is dedicated to her, and I thought about her the entire time. And doing the research was not the easiest because there were times in which I had to go off and go to different parts of the country to do the research. And I remember the first time I FaceTimed her. She was about 4 years old, and no, actually she was 3. She was about to turn 4. And I remember I was in this very luxurious Airbnb, and I saw her eyeball. She was like, "Mommy, is that your new home?" "No, I live with you. I live with you. This is an Airbnb." And so it was kind of hard.